Good evening, this is Kaja Bryx for Racjonalista.tv, and my guest today is Ovidiu Covaciu, the president of Romanian Rationalist Society, the person responsible for launching the Romanian Skeptics podcast, and probably the most active person to raise our awareness of anti-vaccination movement in Romania. And he's going to be one of the speakers on the European Skeptics Congress in Wrocław very soon. Hi Ovidiu, how are you?
Hi, all good, thank you. How's everyone?
Great for having you. Thanks for accepting our invitation. Could you tell us a few words about the situation in Romania? What are the main challenges the skeptics there are facing?
Sure. So Romania is I like to say that Romania is now basically in the 70s of the US skeptical movement. So there's not a lot of people who are involved in what would be promotion of science. It's a very small niche. So there's a few people who are aware of the concepts of critical thinking and how to apply them to day-to-day information. Mm-hmm. But it's not something that is easily accessible in the media, in the mainstream media. There's very little interest in providing, let's say, even a token skeptic sort of opinion in the press. Sometimes there's a medical doctor who would provide that in terms of if the discussion is about medicine. But rarely is there a debate about, let's say, astronomy, homeopathy, where a skeptic would come in and say, listen, this is not something that is workable or respected scientifically. So Romania is very in the very beginning stages, a very early movement over here. Hopefully it will be growing over time, though the worldwide the way we're seeing, not that it's going into a more rational direction at this time. So there are challenges.
So the biggest challenge, in your opinion, is the lack of medical awareness in the society, the anti-vaccination movement, or you would also list some other really worrying ideas?
So, yeah, basically the biggest impact is on the medical front. So anti-vaccine movement is very strong. The anti-cancer treatment movement is also very strong, and this takes a lot of, basically influences a lot of people to make the wrong decision about their lives. And this is the easiest one to find. Anywhere you look, you'll find some solution, some alternative to medicine, to medical treatment. There'll be someone who'll tell you, oh, I have some relative who got cured of cancer because of some plants or honey or anything else, really. That is the biggest impact. There are, of course, conspiracy theories, and there's a specific conspiracy theory that says that Romanians, the ancestors of Romanians are the first civilization. So there's some history, pseudoscience as well. There's you could say alien pseudoscience, where for some reason people believe that under the mountains there are gateways to the universe. So any sort of pseudoscience you want is available. If you wanted to find more, you'll find that one is the most visible. We also have witches, in case you need them. They are available to help you get married or help you have children, all sorts of things that witches do for
Meaning
people.
that people go to a person and pay for some kind of witchcraft, so sorcery, or some magic poison, or this kind of things?
Yes, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So around Bucharest, you can find palaces of the witches, made by honest work, and because they have such great qualities. I'm being sarcastic. So basically, the people go to them and they pay a lot of money. That's in the thousands of euros to get rid of some curses or to drink the potion, to find the loved one, to bring back the loved one, whatever the right story is. It just costs a few $1,000s, and of course you can make a pretty good house with a few clients.
Do they advertise online?
They do, yes. I can't actually translate the advertisements. It's hard to say, but basically there's a very well-known witch, which is called the Romanian term is Mother Caterpillar. I'm not sure why she has that name, but that's her famous witch name. And every witch in the country is basically related to her somehow, either a niece or the long-lost daughter or the...
So the sorcery just runs in your blood, yes? That's the idea.
Yeah. So basically the Mother Caterpillar is the source of all witchcraft in the country. So a very fascinating person. I think she's not actually alive anymore, but the myth is being perpetuated.
Wow. Well, if people believe in witches, then for sure they wouldn't believe in vaccines. I mean, that doesn't really go together, right?
Well, I mean, vaccines are magical, so. So yeah, the local anti-vaccine movement started, I would say, around 2012, but there was actually a bit more noise made in 2008, 2009. And 2008 was the year the Romanian government tried to provide HPV vaccines in the country. Mm-hmm. And that faced a lot of backlash. And then because of the backlash and the failure of that campaign in terms of communication and actual kids vaccinated, the government was basically afraid to talk about vaccination for the next 8 years. And in this gap of information, and basically no information was provided to parents beyond the physicians, no actual leaflet, nothing to see, no way to actually ask questions beyond going to the doctor, and doctors have limited time. So the only way to find information was to Google, and if you Google about vaccines, you're not going to find the good things. You're going to find all the horrible diseases and adverse events and all sorts of information that is basically either exaggerated or lies. So people found that information and got panicked about it and started going in a vicious circle of misinforming themselves. And then, with enough people who do that, there's going to be an anti-vaccine movement. So around 2013, the signs of decreased vaccination coverage started showing up. Mm-hmm. And people started saying we're going to have an epidemic soon. We're going to see some cases coming soon, and it happened. In 2016, we finally, the epidemic started. It started from, it was imported. It came from Italy because it was already started there. But Romania was found as a very willing host. There was a lot of people in Romania who were not properly vaccinated and did not have the proper access to medical, to doctors. And of course, there's also so first one is access to doctors and to vaccines, and the next one is people who don't actually want to vaccinate. So the numbers are basically 96% of the 9,300 at this point people who have been sick of measles were unvaccinated. 96%. I think 2% had one dose, so they had one dose, and then that was not enough. And then I think a total of maybe 90, yes, 90. So of the 9,000, 90 had 2 doses. So that's a 1% failure rate, which is, as we know about vaccines, they fail sometimes, but 1% is very, very easy to accept.
Yeah.
So yeah, the 9,000 cases are now the numbers we have, and also there's 34 deaths at this point, which is the biggest number of deaths in Europe, and it's entirely tragic. Many of them are kids, very young kids. I think over 10 of them are under 1 year old, so they couldn't have been vaccinated anyway. So basically the anti-vaccine movement and the fact that Romania does not properly cover its medical needs for the population have both contributed to this epidemic and to these deaths and these cases as well.
Well, this is really horrible. But is the government taking any actions now?
Yes, so the epidemic started it was announced in September 2016. Cases, came up before. So it was announced in September 2016, and in December 2016, the vaccination age was dropped to 9 months from the standard 12 months vaccination. So kids between 9 and 12 months also needed to be vaccinated. And that started. However, the problem was that the vaccine stockpile was way too small to support another group of kids to be vaccinated. So we had enough vaccines to vaccinate standard number of people, about maybe 300,000 kids per year. But if you add another 150,000 kids to vaccinate, the ones between 9 and 12 months, you're gonna go through the stockpile very fast. And that happened in the next 3 months. We basically, the stockpile was exhausted, and it was very difficult to get the stockpile back. About 4 months to get another batch of sufficient vaccines to vaccinate standard number, the standard need, the year-by-year need, and also the extra cohort, the extra number of kids to be protected. So now, at this point today, after a summer campaign to inform and vaccinate kids, theoretically we should be getting, there's also been a campaign over the summer to vaccinate kids and provide more information to parents, and have the ones that have not vaccinated yet come to some places and discuss about vaccination. And that has happened over the summer, and hopefully it has been enough, because right now school started, so kids are going back to communities, and what will happen is, if they are not vaccinated and the virus is still spreading, there will be another boom. So I think it will be a few weeks to see if the campaign to vaccinate during the summer was actually sufficient. And the next point is, we have a law coming.
Well, I really do hope the situation will get better now. Has this epidemic somehow diminished the influence of the anti-vaccination movements, or not really? Did people realize that there was something wrong with their choice not to vaccinate their kids, or you think they still delude themselves?
Well, it's very difficult to say. So today, the day we're talking, so it's 17th of September, right? There's a protest in the center of the city against the vaccination law, which is supposed to be coming in. I don't know how many people are there at this point. The last time they tried to protest, there were maybe a few, or maybe 100 or 200, something like that. So the actual anti-vaccine core is very small. But the people who are hesitant about the vaccine, especially MMR, is very high. So I think that many of the people who have seen and understood about the epidemic have realized that it's a problem, and that they need to vaccinate their kids. And I've worked with my group and in my project, I work with doctors and parents to help them understand why the vaccine is needed. But the epidemic and the law, which is being worked on, has also started a debate, you can say, in the society. So, press has, for understandable reasons, though not necessarily correct reasons, has when the debate was about vaccination law, they asked anti-vaccine people to come in and tell their opinion about it. When it was about, just making a story about the vaccine and how it's important and how you should vaccinate your kids, then they didn't necessarily need to bring in anti-vaccine parents. They just did some interviews in the park saying, "Oh, I don't want to vaccinate," or I vaccinated and everything was fine. So that was mostly the type of stories. But we did have some cases where anti-vaccine proponents actually went on TV and said that vaccines are bad and everything. Isolated cases, ideally, and should have been less, but it did happen. They did go on TV and say, we should not be vaccinating because who knows what will happen and things like that.
That's really bad. That's what media do in all the countries. That they believe that they need to invite people with the opposite views to make a debate. But the thing is that if the truth doesn't lie in the middle, and in this case it definitely doesn't, then this is really harmful to invite people who are just spreading those lies and risking people's lives. So
it's a complicated issue, right? Because you want to balance the discussion about rights. So the law we're working on is supposed to be, I think, one of the best designed in the region. I know that France is doing something to mandate vaccination from 2018. I know that Italy has already put that into law. But the question is, where do you put the stick, the carrot and the stick? The carrot is you want to have healthy kids, and if you avoid that, how do we pressure you to vaccinate your kids? And I know that Italy is trying to do a high number of, I think it's 7,000 euros of a fine. I'm not sure what France will do, but they have a pretty solid law. There's jail also. And what we're trying to do is, what the law is trying to do basically is to create places where parents can go if they have a concern about vaccines and they don't figure it out with their doctor. They will go to a special committee, discuss with them, and the committee will try and explain why the vaccine is needed, how it's better to be vaccinated than to have measles or any other disease. And if that works out, then the parent will agree to recover vaccination, to get back on the schedule. And if they go to the committee several times and nothing comes out of it, basically they're not going to get fined, but their child will not be able to go into school without two things: without either a waiver from the committee, which is normally going to be based on medical reasons, nothing else, or an agreed vaccine recovery schedule. So there's only two options. Either you have a medical reason to not vaccinate, or you agree to vaccinate on a specific schedule once you go into the community. And the child will be allowed into school initially, with the understanding that the parent is going to recover his vaccines, and I think the limit is 18 months. And if that doesn't happen, then we have fines. So if the parent breaks the commitment to vaccinate his kid once he's allowed into community, then we have fines. And I think at the end of the 18 months, the child will also be taken out of school because, what can you do? But there's also this fragile balance between allowing the child to be in school and benefit from that, and making sure that every other child in the school is protected. Mm-hmm. So, and also the constitutional rights to education and all that.
Of course.
So what the law is trying to do is to make it very clear that the state is not objecting, the state is not stopping the child from going to school. The parent is being given a lot of options and a lot of information in multiple scenarios, in multiple ways, to actually vaccinate. And if they refuse and they do not agree to a vaccine recovery schedule, then technically they are opposing their child's entry into school, into community, any type of kindergarten or actual school. So there's this fine line between, do we, the state, oppose non-vaccinated child going to school, or does the parent oppose it? After we've given them so much information and so many choices to vaccinate and so many options, where is that line? Where does the state say, okay, listen, I cannot do anything more for you. I'm going to have to apply the law and start applying the stakes.
Well, good luck.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've done a great job trying to educate the people through your podcast, through your Facebook page, and through all the projects that you have.
Can I say a bit about that?
Sure.
So I have a group, a Facebook group, which is called Vaccines and Vaccination, but in Romanian. And over time, it has grown to be the biggest pro-vaccine group on Facebook. So that means there's no other group that has that many people in it. And it grew very rapidly after the epidemic was announced. And we have a lot of doctors in the group, a lot of information for parents who want to understand why vaccination is important. And so the group is very important. It's used as a source, as a trusted source, basically, for vaccine information. And that is I'm very proud of that. Me and my team are very proud of that. And there's also the page, the infographic page that I created. So we basically wanted to answer the questions we saw in the group very often. We want to try and answer that in an image format. So that meant, just take the question, put the answer, put it in an image, not full text, just some icons, and make that viral. And that was actually very successful. So the page grew since last year to 16,000 likes, fans, and we've reached over 7 million people. Overall, the reach of 7 million. So that is, a third
really
of the population of Romania. So that is quite a big number. So those are the two projects I'm keeping strong with. Hopefully they'll be less needed after the law comes in, but we'll see.
Well, I'm sure you will still have a lot of things to do after the law is there, because the pseudo-scientific nonsense usually attracts other types of nonsense. They all go well together. So you've mentioned the witches before, you've mentioned the pseudo-history, and I'm sure there are other completely non-scientific theories going around in the air.
Yeah, one of the funniest things is that the anti-vaccine people that are very high in their community are very visible at promoting other conspiracies. So chemtrails, the lines that are left behind by airplanes as they fly through the sky, some people just call those clouds, or I think the actual term is contrails. Mm-hmm. These people call them chemtrails, which basically I think they're saying that the airplanes are dropping chemical something over the people to dumb them down, is the term. and to make them accept what the government says. It's very, very strong language. And that is just, when I saw an anti-vaccine person, look, there was pictures of the sky, and it was like, oh, chemtrails are very strong today, let's stay inside. Man. And there's also something called Germanic New Medicine, which is a pseudo therapy mainly focused on cancer patients. So, very, very dangerous.
That's very dangerous, really.
Where basically what the proponents of Germanic New Medicine say is that you don't need to treat yourself with anything. You can just let your body heal itself, by sheer force of will.
From cancer.
That's how you'll die. But actually, what they say is that you'll heal yourself. And of course, after you die, there's no more diseases. So it's a way to heal yourself. So these are some things that the anti-vaccine movement pushes a lot. Of course, the big pharma conspiracies and all sorts of government wants to kill us all, and there's too many people in the world and things like that. So all that is mixed up in the vaccine ideology, and it's very hard to get them out of it. It's very hard to grab them out and say, listen, you're not thinking about this correctly. But people try.
Well, seems like you will have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Well, we wish you all the best with all your efforts. We are also quite busy in Poland right now. So I think everyone, in all the countries, we are facing these kind of ideas that are being spread and become more and more popular, unfortunately, these days. So good that we can stand together against them and meet each other and discuss, like during the European Skeptics Congress. I hope there will be this opportunity. So looking forward to seeing you there in Wrocław.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well, and everyone else who's watching, sure, come to the Congress and we can have more in-depth conversations.
Thank you very much, and all the best.
Thank you.